Corsos, huh? They're kind of impressive, aren't they?
Definitely.
Big and powerful, a real history as guard dogs. But I think people want to know more than that, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot more to them than meets the eye.
Exactly. So let's dive in. What makes them tick? Could they be like the perfect dog for a family?
Well, one of the most interesting things about Cane Corsos is how well their history, as working dogs in Italy, actually translates to being family dogs today.
Oh, interesting.
It's like their instincts to guard and protect, that's still there. It's in their DNA.
Right.
But it's how those instincts come out in a family. That's what's fascinating.
I get it. I get it. So let's be real. They are big dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I once saw a Cane Corso puppy, and it was bigger than my friend's, like, fully grown beagle. I know, right? It makes you wonder, are they good with kids?
That's a good question, and it comes up a lot. One article we looked at actually called them furry linebackers.
Okay, I like that.
And it's so true.
Curry linebackers.
They're strong, they've got energy, but they're also gentle, which
Right.
people don't always see.
Right.
You wouldn't, let a linebacker loose in a china shop, right?
They're probably not a good idea.
Same with the Cane Corso and toddlers. You got to be careful. But it's not because they're aggressive.
Right.
They're super affectionate with kids. It's more about teaching them, how to play gently
Right.
and supervising. So there aren't any accidental tackles
Right.
from these furry linebackers.
So it's all about setting them up for success right from the beginning.
Exactly. And that means training early and consistent. A well-trained Cane Corso is a happy Cane Corso. They really thrive when they know the rules, what's expected of them.
That makes sense. It sounds like training's going to be a big topic.
Absolutely.
But before we get into that, what about strangers?
Yeah.
Some breeds, they're wary of new people. Others want to be best friends with everyone. Where do Cane Corsos fall?
They're more on the observant side, I'd say. They're not going to rush up to every stranger, barking and jumping all over them. They'll kind of hang back, check out the situation, take cues from their owner.
That makes sense. Being cautious isn't always a bad thing, especially with a breed that was bred for protection. Right?
Absolutely. It's in their nature. But that being said, it is super important to get them used to all kinds of people and situations when they're puppies.
Oh, so like puppy classes, that kind of thing.
Puppy classes, yeah. And also inviting friends over, taking them for walks where it's busier, all those different sights and sounds.
So make their world big and interesting.
Exactly. The more they experience early on, the better they'll be at figuring out who's a real threat and who's just, new.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so they can be great with kids with some supervision, and they're not usually aggressive towards strangers, especially with good socialization early on. What about other animals, though? Can they handle a house with multiple pets, or do they prefer to be the only, king or queen of the castle?
Well, this is where that guarding instinct we talked about might come in. Cane Corsos can be territorial, especially with other dogs of the same sex.
Interesting. It doesn't mean they'll automatically have problems with other pets, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Introductions should be careful, and, you guessed it, more socialization.
So early and consistent socialization is key here.
It really is. It's like setting the stage for them to be well-adjusted, happy dogs. And it's not just a puppy thing either. That consistent training all throughout their lives, it's super important for any breed, but especially for a dog as smart and strong-willed as a Cane Corso.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Like building a house, right? You need a good foundation. And with a Cane Corso, that foundation is communication, boundaries, lots of positive reinforcement.
Gotcha. So we've talked a lot about their guarding instincts, the training and socialization they need, but I want to know deep down, what are they like? And when they're not being all protective, what's going on in those big old heads of theirs?
Okay, so you're going to love this. They're actually big softies. One article we read had this story, hilarious, about a Cane Corso named Boston. He was totally freaking out about a baby gate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one. He was not happy about being, restricted, was he?
Not at all. He stood there forever, grumbling, staring at that gate like it had personally offended him.
Oh, my gosh.
It just shows you behind that, impressive look. They've got these big personalities, full of life, kind of goofy even.
I love it. So not just serious guard dogs, they've got a playful side, too.
For sure. It's smart. Don't let those eyes fool you. There's a lot going on in their heads. That intelligence is why they're so trainable. But it's also why you got to keep at it with the training,
So it's kind of like with kids. The smarter they are, the more you got to challenge them. Keep them busy.
Exactly. Some dogs, they're happy just lying around. Not Cane Corsos. These guys, they need to think. Puzzle toys are good for that, like Sudoku for dogs.
Uh-huh. Sudoku for dogs. I like it. Now, I've heard they can get separation anxiety. Is that true?
Yeah, they're definitely pack animals. Leaving them alone for too long, that's tough on them. Remember, they were bred to work with their owners, so they want that connection. If you're thinking about getting a Cane Corso, you got to make sure you can be around or at least give them plenty to do during the day, physically and mentally.
So, not the best dog for someone who works long hours and isn't home much then.
They'd much rather be with a family that can include them in things. Hiking, playing fetch, even just hanging out on the couch. That's what makes them happy.
Sounds pretty great, actually. They seem like they bring a lot of, life to a home.
They really do. But like you said before, they're not for everyone.
True, any dog is a big responsibility. But even more so with a breed like this, you got to be ready to put in the time, understand what they need, give them the structure they crave.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to mention before we move on is about advocating for them. In public, I mean.
Oh, right. That's a good point. I bet some people can be, intimidated by them just because of how they look.
Yeah, unfortunately. Big dogs, they sometimes get a bad rap.
Yeah.
Just because of their size, how they look. It's our job as owners to educate people, show them that a Cane Corso, when they're trained and socialized, they could be just as well behaved, just as loving as any other dog.
Changing hearts and minds one interaction at a time.
Exactly. Be ready to answer questions, address concerns, show people what responsible Cane Corso ownership is all about.
Love it. Okay, so before we get to our final thoughts for this deep dive, let's recap for a sec. We've covered their temperament, those furry linebackers with the hearts of gold, right?
That's a good one.
Their intelligence, those puzzle-solving pups, and how much they need training, socialization, and just, love and attention.
And their goofy side.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Boston and that baby gate.
Yeah, right. Even when we're talking about the serious stuff, we got to remember to have some fun. Because that's what it's all about, right? At the end of the day, Cane Corsos, yeah, they're big and strong, but they also bring joy, they make you laugh, and they give a whole lot of love. They really do. It's easy to forget sometimes with all the details about training and stuff, but having a Cane Corso is supposed to be fun.
Oh, absolutely. They just have this way of making you feel, I don't know, loved and protected at the same time, but also they keep things interesting.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up our deep dive here on Cane Corsos, I want to leave everyone listening with something to think about. You've given us so much already, their instincts, that history as guardians, the loyalty. So here's my question for you and for everyone else. How do those protective instincts, how do they actually play out in a normal family? And if you're thinking about getting a Cane Corso or you already have one, how do you work with that? So everyone's safe and happy, dogs and humans.
That's such a good question. It's about finding a balance, isn't it? You want to honor their instincts, but not let them, take over. And a lot of that comes back to what we talked about before, the training, being consistent, setting those boundaries, giving them a purpose in the family.
So you're kind of like their coach in a way.
Exactly. You teach them the rules, you guide them, help them be their best selves. And when you do that, when you really get how they think, that's when that bond gets really strong.
I love that. It's more than just being an owner. It's like you're a coach, a mentor, a guide. And when you approach it like that, wow, Cane Corsos can be incredible, those loving, loyal companions. This has been amazing. I feel like we went way beyond just the basics, about Cane Corsos. We really got into what makes them special.
I totally agree. They're complicated, just like us, and they deserve our respect, understanding, and a whole lot of love.
Perfectly said. So, to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this episode gave you a better sense of Cane Corsos and if they might be the right fit for your family. Remember, do your research, find good breeders or rescues, and be ready for an adventure, because that's what you get with one of these amazing dogs.
And if you're already sharing your life with a Cane Corso, give them a big hug from us.
Yes, all the belly rubs. Until next time, everyone, keep learning and keep those tails wagging.